Marking knife and file. When making marks on wood, nothing beats a marking knife when precision is important. This simple knife was made from an old worn-out file with rudimentary tools. If you have ever wanted to make a knife but don't have conventional metalworking tools, this project is for you. Step 1. Materials. File. Hardwood. 1/4 in. Brass rod. Epoxy. Wood finish. Matte gas torch. Magnet. Sharpie. Vise. Angle grinder. Strip sander. Sandpaper. Hammer. Center punch. Drill. Canola oil. Oven. Whetstone. Painter's tape. Spring clamps. Bandsaw. Step 2. Anneal file. In order to make the file workable, it needs to be annealed. This will make it less tough and easily shaped. To anneal the file, turn on the matte gas torch and heat it until it loses its magnetism. I set up my torch in my hot pipe wood bending jig. I screwed a magnet to a long stick to keep my hands far away from the hot temperatures. Let the file cool down on its own. If you have some, placing the file in a pile of sand will help it cool down slowly. Step 3. Trace pattern. Download the attached template and trace it onto the file. Step 4. Shape knife. Clamp the file in a vise and shape it using a hacksaw or angle grinder. Once the rough shape is achieved, refine it using a strip sander. Step 5. Grind bevel. Cut a 30-degree angle on a piece of scrap wood and clamp it to the strip sander. This will act as a guide for the bevel of the knife. Slowly drag the blade of the knife over the guide until the blade is almost sharp. Do not sharpen it at this point. The bevel needs to be on the more aggressive side of the file. The other side will need to be ground flat to ensure a sharp blade. Step 6. Flatten knife. Using a flat piece of sandpaper, hand grind the blade flat. Step 7. Drill pinholes. Mark pinhole locations in the knife blank with a center punch. Drill 1/4 in. Holes in the tang of the knife. Be sure to clamp the blade in place. Do not hold it by hand. Step 8. Drill pinholes in scales. Using a brad point drill, mark the locations of the pins in the scales. Drill corresponding holes in the scales. With the pins in place, trace the tang on the inside of the scales. Remove the excess wood of the scales. Step 9. Harden blade. To harden the blade, it needs to be heated just past the point when it loses its ability to be attracted to a magnet. Once heated to this point, quench it in oil. I used canola oil as it doesn't smell bad compared to other oils used for hardening steel. Step 10. Temper blade. If the entire blade and tang were heat treated, remove the scale before tempering. Since only the blade portion of this knife was hardened, I skipped removing the scale at this time. Removing the scale will allow you to see the color of the blade after tempering. Heat the blade in an oven to 400 degrees Fahrenheit for an hour and a half to 2 hours. I used a toaster oven I have in the garage, but any oven will do. Once heated, turn the oven off and allow it to cool until you can handle it by hand. It should be a pale yellow color. Step 11. Grind. shine, and sharpen. Once tempered, remove the scale from the blade. I used a set of whetstones to hone and sharpen the blade. Step 12. Epoxy handles. Wrap the blade in painter's tape. This will do two things: mask off the portion of the blade that shouldn't get epoxy on it, and keep you from getting cut. Once wrapped, place the scales on the tanger. Cut the painter's tape along the edge of the scale. Remove the excess tape and apply ample amount of epoxy to the tanger. Attach the scales and pins to the tanger. Apply sufficient even pressure on the scales using spring clamps. Let dry. Step 13. Shape handle. Once the epoxy is dry, cut off the excess pins. Shape the handle until it feels comfortable in the hand. Once the handle is comfortable, sand with increasingly fine sandpaper. Step 14. Finish handle. I finish the handle with a beeswax conditioner. Step 15. Admire your work. Once finished, admire your marking knife. You have made something that will serve you well for years to come. Keep it sharp and get making.